The fortress city of Maastricht has a number of fortifications which are still intact. One of these is the Hoge Fronten, situated in the neighbourhood of Brusselsepoort. From the second half of the 16th century, cannon fire was the main threat to the defences of a fortress. This threat consisted of the capacity to destroy the existing fortifications around a city. The destructive power of a cannonballs is partially determined by the distance between the cannon and the fortifications. The greater the distance, the lesser the damage. So the question is how to keep the cannons at a distance, reducing the damage they do. The most simple solution is to use water basins. Water and soil make mud. In the mud it is impossible to maneuver with a cannon. Shallow water basins provide the mud. When water basins cannot be dug, the option most frequently chosen is a waterless defense by a system of dry moats. To counter the threat of cannons, it was decided to add these defensive structures outside the actual city walls. On the north and south side of the city of Maastricht, the shallow water basins were added. The river Meuse is fed mainly by rainfall, and until 1933 the water level depended on the weather and the seasons. As a consequence, the water basins could not be provided with river water all year round. But the little river Jeker has a continuous stream and could very well be used to fill the water basins. By closing the 3 sluices at the water gate the Reek, the water flowed into the water basins. From the city gate Brusselsepoort, a subterranean channel, Jeker Inundantiekanaal, led to the north side of the city to provide water to the northern water basins. However, the water level of the Jeker is too low to provide water to the higher ground on the west side of the city, the Hoge Fronten. As a consequence, the defensive structures here consist of dry moats, bastions and lunettes. On the contemporary map of Maastricht, these structures were situated between the current Kabergerweg, Koningin Emmaplein and Tongerseplein. Often a dry defensive system will also contain a network of subterranean mine tunnels. Below the Hoge Fronten there is such a network of casemates called kazematten in Maastricht. Now we will take a closer look at how an attack on the Hoge Fronten would unfold. We will assume the enemy attacks a lunette, a defensive structure in the shape of an arrow situated between 2 bastions. The city is surrounded by so-called glacis. These are slight rises in the landscape which prevent the enemy from seeing the defensive works behind the glacis. The very first defensive line is a parapet. In this context, an earthen wall with soldiers armed with muskets. Behind them, the defenders of the city await the attackers to shoot them. Once this line is conquered, the attackers will have to climb a high wall. On top of this wall is another parapet, behind which is another defensive line of soldiers with muskets. When this line is also taken by the attackers, the enemy has reached the so-called terrace square. On this square, the cannons are aimed at the enemy outside the glacis. The enemy can now access the first dry moat and seize the outside walls of the bastions. On top of these is another solid parapet, behind which the city's defenders are shooting at the enemy. Behind the back of the enemy, in the so-called keel or throat, in front of the point of the bastion, there is a casemate with many embrasures designed to shoot the enemy in the back. The enemy now faces the climb up the outside wall of the bastion. This process needs to be repeated several times, since there is not one, but a series of defensive lines before the enemy reaches the actual city wall of Maastricht. Here also are soldiers defending the wall. The high fronts of Maastricht have acted as such a deterrent to enemies. They have never attempted to attack this dry part of the city's defences. Around 1850, many armed forces replaced their smooth-bore cannons with modern ones. The smooth-bore cannon used iron balls and had an effective reach of around 700 meters. The modern cannon had a barrel with a turned profile on the inside and used specially adapted projectiles. In this way, these bullets would be launched flawlessly and could reach from 2.5 to 4.5 kilometers. In 1867, Dutch King William III ended the fortress status of Maastricht, which led to the demolition of many fortifications around the city. Part of the high fronts, however, has been spared because it could be used as a shooting range for the garrison of Maastricht. The area to the west of the Statensingel is still in existence. The part between Emmaplein and Tongerseplein has been levelled, providing space for the current neighbourhood Blauwdorp.